This video was produced in association with Bruce Williams Enterprises. Please be aware, Bruce Williams disavows all knowledge of the contents of this video and of this vlogger. Thank you for your attention. Hey guys, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches, and I have another exciting episode for you today. We are going to review the Tissot PRX. Is that what it is? Yes, it's the PRX. And I'm wearing it right now, so let's do the quick fist watch check and move into the meat and potatoes of this video. And here it is. Today, guys, I am wearing the slightly floppy, not terribly well fitted PRX Tissot. Now, this is a production made in association with Bruce Williams. Bruce Williams, thank you so much for lending me your watch. Let's get into this, guys. We're gonna flip this camera around, pick this puppy apart, and then I'm gonna come back and talk to you. Well, guys, as you could see aesthetically, you know, from the wrist shot, this is a fine looking watch. So what they have done here is they have created a good look for not a whole lot of money. And, you know, so it's not really a watch guy's watch, but, you know, for an everyman, it's not a bad thing. Now, the first thing that I really dislike about this watch is it is not hitting on the seconds hand, and it's a little bit hard to tell, but it gets progressively worse as it moves past the 12. So I don't know if you're quite able to see that. I think you are. It's hitting some of the indices, but it's missing a lot of them. And here's the funny thing. It's looking to me a little bit better today than it did yesterday, which means it's inconsistent. So the seconds hand hitting funny is constantly a problem. It bugs me. And again, you can see it more on some of the indices than others. And I think that bugs me worse than if it was consistently inconsistent, if you get my drift. So that's a bit of a problem for me. And the worst of it is look at the minute hand right now. It is aligned perfectly there at 9 minutes after. But it was aligned perfectly when the seconds hand was down here at the 30. You cannot line the minute hand up. If you hack the watch and you get this thing exact, 1 minute later it's off. So neither the seconds hand nor the minute hand lines up. And I don't actually think it's just this particular watch. I believe this is endemic to the specific movement that's in this watch, because I've read that movement is subject to missing the indices. So I think it's just a cheap movement, and that would be the problem there. I think it would have been nicer if they would have outlined the date window, framed it out there, but they've just cut a hole for it. But that is not one of my 5 things that I hate. The first thing is that seconds hand, which seems to be aligning here, but watch there, it's off, and it's just going to continue to be hit or miss. Second thing I really don't like is the fact that minute hand is never aligning when it should, and it doesn't matter how you hack this watch. You're never going to get that right. So those are 2 problems right there for OCD people. Now, when you flip this guy over, here's something else. There's 2 things on the back here that I don't like. Again, bear in mind, this is a nice looking watch. So I think that this watch is just fine for people who want a cheap one and done. But, you know, come on, guys, that's not us, or you wouldn't be watching this video. It's a nice looking piece. I do like the integrated bracelet, the 70s look, but I hate a snap-on case back. To me, it looks like you're supposed to take a butter knife or a case back tool and pry that open to get at the battery. And I don't like that. I think it would be much better if it was a screw-down case back, so you could more reliably get it on and off. Not that you're going to have to do that often, but I just don't like the fact that you're supposed to pry it open. That smacks of extreme cheapness on the case back. So I don't love that. Although I kind of like that starburst effect that you get from the machining, which, by the way, is a whole lot better than the starburst effect that you get on the so-called starburst blue dial. I can tell you, if you put this in super strong light, you can get a little bit of a starburst effect, but I feel like they blew it. The dial is, it's not very dynamic. It's only a little dynamic, and only in a very particular kind of light. I'll throw a picture in right here to show you what that looks like. Well, you know, I'm holding this up to like a very powerful halogen light, and if I get it just in the right angle, we do get a nice burst effect on the dial. The problem, of course, is unless you care to hold your wrist up to the halogen light, you're hardly ever going to see this in the sunlight. In other words, it's very dependent upon extreme bright sunshine to give you this effect. Now, don't get me wrong, I like this. If only this dial occasionally looked like that. You know, but in the real world, it almost never does, which is kind of a shame. So now you've seen what it could look like, but let me just tell you something, it almost never does. So the dial is a bit of a disappointment. And by the way, the bracelet, it's extremely comfortable. I have to say the design of it is very nice. It really harkens back to the 70s. It reminds me, in fact, of the more expensive Rolex Oyster Quartz, okay? But one thing that bugs me is, although I do like me a butterfly clasp, there are 0 micro adjustments here. And by the way, one thing I do like is you can close either side first. It doesn't matter. And that is not true of every butterfly clasp, so that's a good thing. But there's no half links, there's no micro adjustments. So you're going to get this thing close in terms of adjustment. These are friction pins at this price point, that's fine. You'll get this bracelet close, but you will not get an exact fit. And if your wrist swells up, too bad. If your wrist shrinks, too bad. So I'm not in love with the fact that there's 0 micro adjusts on that case back. The other thing that I find really weird, maybe this will change eventually, but you see these 2 screws sticking up there? Well, they're placed well. They don't touch your wrist, so it's not a problem there, but you would get in there and squeeze those, and then it's a quick release for the bracelet. So you could very quickly get this bracelet off. The problem is that this is a unique and proprietary closure system right there for that quick release. And there are no bracelet or strap options. So what is the point of having a quick release option with no replacement strap options? So it's useless, and in fact what it does is it means that you can't actually replace this bracelet with anything else, because look at where you would have to do your connector to. So that's a bit of a problem in my estimation. A fine looking watch that does not fill the bill, that just does not quite fit for a collector. So at the end of the day, guys, there are 5 things that bother me about this watch, and quite frankly, I do not think this is a watch for a watch collector at all. Who's the guy who should get a PRX? Well, this is what you get your son for graduating from high school, or from graduating from junior high school if he's got a bigger wrist. This is something that you buy, you try out, you get tired of, and within 3 or 4 months you're giving it to a buddy of yours. The reality is it's an okay watch, but that's all it is. It's just an okay watch. Now, its price point is good. The dynamic of it, the visual aesthetic of it, it's good. But this is not a watch for a watch collector for reasons that we have discussed inside this video. Now, that being said, okay, if you're the kind of guy who you're in the market for, let's say, the Q Timex, well, I think this is way better than the Q Timex, all right? There's a whole lot more quality built into this watch than the Q Timex, and its price is really only about $100 more. So if you like a Q Timex, well, you'll like this a lot. It's definitely better than that. But guys, isn't that setting the bar really, really, really low? There are just so many watches in the $400 or $500 point. If you just move up the scale the littlest bit, you can get into some decent Seikos and quartz watches and things that are better than this little Tissot PRX. What I think that Tissot has done a good job of is filling a niche at the lower end of the market for just like normal people. But here's the problem, guys. You, me, we are not normal. We are watch collectors. We are watch nerds. We are, as Jeff McMahon says, we are watch obsessives. Don't get this. You'll be disappointed. Guys, thanks so much for having joined me. Bruce, appreciate you lending me your watch. Sorry I had to pick on it. This is Goldberg. Peace out.